Well, welcome to part 2 of my canning video. I decided, yeah, I'm in the same clothes. It's the same day, guys. But I decided to split it up into 2 because sometimes my videos get way too long. Like I chat and I chat and I chat. So, as I mentioned in an earlier video, I have been really trying to go through my pantry and look at things that are nearing, ooh-wee, that almost went on the floor, or past their best by date. And unfortunately, this one doesn't say. I had 100% grape juice and I was gonna make some grape jelly with it. Well, that never happened. So, put the book right here, Kym. I have purchased some Weck jars and I will show them to you a little bit later in the video. But basically, instead of the flat and the ring, like on a normal, I'll just say ball jar, these are glass, like almost a tulip-shaped jar with a glass lid, and the seal is a rubber gasket, and you clip it down. So what I'm gonna be doing is I am going to be trying using my Weck jars for the first time. I have done a lot of research. I'm by no means an expert. I've never done this before. But I thought, you know, it might be nice to know which of the two I prefer and why, or does it really make any difference? I just realized I left my cabinet open, y'all. So I am going to be using the recipe out of the Bulk Complete Book of Home Preserving. Yeah, mine's a little sad shape. And it is on page 110. Wait, is this right? Yes. And it makes about 7 8-ounce jars. Now, I've put way more jars in the canner than that. So, here comes Hanky Panky Frankie. He's like so upset because the kitchen's a mess, and he's like, I might need a sink drink in the middle of all this. So, what the recipe calls for is 5 cups of grape jelly, or grape juice, and 1 package of pectin. So I'm going to go ahead and get those ingredients into this enamel coated cast iron pan. We're going to bring it up to a full boil, and then, y'all, this is high in sugar, but grape jelly is my favorite. We're going to add all at once 6 cups of granulated sugar, let it boil for a minute, and then we'll get to jarring up our Weck jars and see how they work. Stay tuned. If you've never made jelly before, one of the things, while it's very easy to can because it's water bath canning, one of the things you want to make sure you do is use the exact proportions. So I have my 5 cups of grape juice, and I am going to whisk in my pectin. It is important that you don't just dump in all of your pectin, in my experience, because it can tend to get really clumpy. And then your jelly doesn't want to jelly evenly, if that makes sense. Oh, y'all, that smells so good. I'm not usually, I had, I don't know, maybe 3 cups of juice left. Normally, I'm not a juice drinker. It's just not something I gravitate towards. Every time I drink grape juice, I feel like I'm at the communion, you know, the Lord's Supper. So that is a long time memory from childhood. So I did finally find in bold print that the grape juice best by date was the end of December. So it's fine. This is just the 1st of February. And again, it's a best by date. It doesn't say it expired. I did taste it, y'all. Anytime I'm going to use something that is past its best by date, I definitely do the taste thing, the smell thing, the look thing. And as long as it passes all those tests, I will generally use it. I do recommend, I know this is a lot of sugar, that for this recipe, I'm following it exactly, that you don't try to cut back the sugar. And it's also really helpful, y'all, if you measure your sugar out in advance, if you've never made jelly before, because once this comes up to a full rolling boil, we're gonna add that jelly, y'all, you'll have to excuse me. the sugar all at once. It's been a very, very busy day on the homestead. I have a pressure canner full of my chili bean starter, and it is now on the cool down cycle. I have the water bath canner prepared for these jelly jars, and I have the freeze dryer running. So I'm sure my electric meter's spinning like mad out there, but days where it's, you know, only 20 degrees and it's snowing, it's so nice to have indoor projects that support being self-sufficient, that decrease your reliance on, you know, the store, etc. I was going to see if this had any of the ingredients list. This is just grape juice, citric acid, vitamin C. So it does have a little bit of additives, but no preservatives. So that makes me happy. And y'all know, I don't buy all organic products. I can't afford it, so I have to kind of pick my battles. So we're about to come up to a boil here. Very close. So let me do this because a watch pot never boils. I'm going to dump in the sugar all at once. I'm going to bring it back to a boil that can't be stirred down. I'm going to cook it for 1 minute. I will probably need to turn the heat down off of high. And then we will be ready to jar up our jelly. Stay tuned. Hey y'all, I wanted to remind you, make sure that your pot is big enough because your jelly is going to rise significantly in the pot. I have the heat turned off. We're down to about 11 seconds. It's calming down a little bit. Got a little hairy there for a minute. All right. I'll meet you over at the canning station. So I add about a tablespoon of butter. That's totally optional because you will notice your jelly does have a tendency to get like a skin on the top. That doesn't bother me, but it doesn't look super attractive in your jars. So it helps some. And what you can do then is, that jar is hot. You can skim off any of the foam that you don't want in your jars. But mine actually doesn't look too bad. All right, so this is what a Weck jar looks like. It's hot, hot. And a normal funnel does not fit the size of the mouth of a Weck jar. So what we're gonna do here, I have washed them in hot soapy water, and the jars are of course hot. And these hold a little bit more than 8 ounces. We're gonna leave a head space like you would any jelly making project of 1/4 inch. So let me get that where I think it goes. Don't want to overfill, but I don't want to underfill. All right. I always debubble my jelly, even though this is thin. Next, the lid, which has been, it's hot too. It says Weck, it has a strawberry. You take your gasket, you place it on your lid like this. You put your lid down. Here's the front of the jar. Not that that matters. It'll just be cuter this way. And then there are metal clips that go on the jars. And you just want to hook those on. Now, this may take me a second to, there we go. Oops. My fiddly hands, y'all. There we go. So they just snap on tightly. Whew, that jar is hot. And you want to make those clips opposite of each other. Make sure they're on there securely. This one is not. Okay, I can already tell you I don't like the seal. Okay, there we go. That's on there tight. This is what it looks like. Into the canner we go. Y'all, I'm putting in the last Weck jar, and I have to tell you, it gets easier. I do not have the strongest or best hands. I'm sure you've all known that. So I had to fiddle a little bit to get it secure. But once I got past the first one, it was pretty easy. So look at our beautiful jelly. All right, here, let me show you. Oh, y'all, don't look at my kitchen. Woo-wee, don't look at my kitchen. Oops, and you just fell down. I got 4 Weck jars and 3 half pints. Oops, and you guys are looking at an odd angle. So I am turning on my Ball FreshTech electric canner up to can. I will wait till it comes to a full rolling boil. You need to process this for the appropriate length of time for your altitude. Let me just read to you real quick. I hate being read to. Bring to a boil and process for 10 minutes. Remove canner lid, wait 5 minutes, remove jars. So what we will do with those Weck jars is we will leave the snappy things on for 24 hours. Then we'll remove them and we will check the seal. And then tomorrow, pardon me, I'll be able to tell you what I think as the difference between using a regular lid or a Weck jar. I only have 6 Weck jars in the jelly size, and I think I have 4 of a medium size. Guys, they're so pricey. They're like $8 a jar. The other thing I did that I didn't mention, the rubber rings. I put the rings, the jars, and the lids on the canner. Pardon me, I washed them all, of course, to get hot. I think the ring, when I pulled the jar out, and I have the lid and I have the ring and they're hot, the rubber ring, putting it on right away, it seemed to be more pliable and it was easier to get it to lie flat and not have any buckles or folds on it. So maybe that tip will help you. So we're gonna let this process. I'm gonna finish my other video. Y'all, I'm trying to get some content up for you that isn't just sourdough, so I hope you'll bear with me. All right, stay tuned. I wanted to just pop in here for a second. I was scraping out the pot because we don't waste food in this house. And I had like this much jelly left, and I'm gonna eat it, so I'm not worried about eating out of my own jar. And it does have some of the foam type skin on it, which actually tastes fine. But you all, this, it's really getting thick too. Packed full of grape flavor. And what I have to tell you is it's so much better than store jelly. I'm kind of proud of that. Jelly is one of my favorite things to can. Yeah, I'm just gonna eat this straight out the jar, y'all. Wow, is that ever good? But even though I enjoy canning jelly, I don't eat a ton of jelly. But with our sourdough series, I know that I'm going to be doing some English muffins, and I don't really particularly like syrup on pancakes. I like jelly. So I will be getting into my jelly stash, which I definitely need to. But that might be the best jelly I've ever made, and it was so easy, y'all. I also had a thought. I wanted to just throw this out here. I'm like, I'm putting this grape juice in the fridge, and you know, I don't want to waste it. I need to be drinking it. I'm not a fan of the taste of elderberry syrup, although this batch I made most recently on the video is the best I've ever made. It's very palatable. But I could put my elderberry syrup in that grape juice and have a little juice class in the morning and get some extra vitamin C and some nutrition and not waste food. You know, y'all, I think that's really what has struck me the most, and I'm sorry to go off on a different tangent, but I'm going to, about the pantry challenge. And I also did the Every Bit Counts challenge, where you try to put something by every single day, you know, preserve something every day. And putting it away is easy. Using it so that you're a good steward of your food, for me, not criticism of you all, has been a little tougher. And I think it really makes you more creative. I think you end up making dishes that maybe you haven't had for a long time. You know, one of the big takeaways from this challenge for me was I am not a big meat eater. I need to focus my resources towards my garden, canning that up or freezing it or freeze drying it, grain, rice and beans, and eggs, well, you know, chickens, but that's what I eat. So, and a little meat, you know, here and there. So, you know, a lot of wins, but trying to be creative and come up with different ways to use the same thing. You could also use that juice as half of your liquid in a Jello. I checked, I only have an orange and I think a strawberry, and I don't think grape juice would be very good in that. Maybe it would be. You could make a Jello salad, put a little bit of fruit in it, you know, that would be good. Might have to do that, might do that too. All right, y'all, I'll see you once our canner is done, just to show you the jars, and then you will see tomorrow, Kym, for the end of the video, but it'll just be a second for you. All right, stay tuned. All right, y'all, have a little bit of information that I want to share with you about my impressions so far. Now, I won't be able to take the clips off of the Weck jars until they're totally cool, so that will be tomorrow, so that will be, you know, a moment for you, but that will be my true end of the video. So I have 3 ball jars, and y'all, I can't even believe this. I'm gonna have a seal failure on this one. No real clue why. It's still really hot, so I'm gonna let it set. No big deal, I can eat the jam, or jelly, excuse me. But I have to say that's been one of my frustrations, whether I'm using 4 jars or ball canning lids, which is primarily what I use. I have used lids also from Layman's, I will add that. Just every once in a while you get a random seal failure, and that may well be the case of the Weck jar. Would I be comfortable pressure canning in the Weck jar? For me, and I think y'all have to make your own decision, no, not yet. Number one, I want to see what the seal rate is, how difficult it is. So high acid, high sugar, you know, products like tomatoes and jams and jellies and fruits and things like that are water bath can. I love the Weck jar. One thing I did notice is there is a huge difference between the thickness of a Weck and a ball jar. I think these are all ball. Well, than an American jar. So these are primarily used like over in the UK. This is very common for them, but I will say they're not USDA approved, so you have to make your own decision. What I really like about them so far, once I figured out the clips, is you're going to be able to see down in your product instead of having an opaque lid. So if you've got, you know, any mold or problems starting, I think it will be more apparent. I also like that aside from that little rubber seal, which does not touch your food, and it's rubber, you know, it's not plastic, you're not getting exposed to maybe what coats the underside of our American lids. So I like that. I really am trying to find ways to be very healthy, while the Weck jars are about $6 for this size a piece. Jars are not something that I go through really frequently. So while I may keep, well, I won't ever get rid of jars, I may purchase a few more of these if they are successful, especially to use for some tomato canning, because I like that their sizes are metric and a little bit different. These are actually, I found out 12 ounces. I had to go look it up. So I'm impressed, y'all, so far. And I think, you know, just go slow, take your time when you're learning how to use a Weck jar. I would also encourage you to use water bath for your first experience. And, you know, don't make 47 pints in case you have a problem. I just don't think I'm going to have a problem. So tomorrow what we'll do is I will show you. We'll take off the clips and then I'll be picking up the jar by the lid to test it to make sure it's sealed. One of the questions, and I think again this is a personal decision, is can you reuse this little rubber ring? And what I can tell you based on my research is the company is going to tell you it's a disposable commodity, use it, throw it away. There are people who have used their rubber seals for years and years and years and only dispose of them when they get brittle or if they get a tear or they're warped, you know, that type thing. I personally would reuse the seal for water bath products, so high acid, high sugar products. So that's what I have for you today, Kym. And this was our part 1 video, so don't try to do 2 videos at once, y'all, but I'm kind of glad I got it all done. It's been a productive day here on the homestead, a good day to spend indoors with the snow. My poor girly girls, it is stupid cold out there. It's so windy, and they've already put themselves in their little coop because there's a kind of a natural windbreak, and they were all bunched up together when I went out to collect eggs just a little bit ago. So I'll give them their treats early, and I always say I put them to bed early. All I do is shut the coop door. They put themselves to bed. All right, I'll see y'all in the morning. Stay tuned. Time to take a look at our canned jelly and do our comparison of Weck jars versus ball jars. As you see, it's still dark outside. I have a lot to do today, y'all. I do have an eyelash appointment, so I don't have on eye makeup, so I hope you'll excuse that. At any rate, let's take a look at my results. Now, in full disclosure, again, Weck jars are not USDA approved in the US, but they are widely used in the UK and in Europe, and they don't use our type of mason jars. So I'm really embarrassed to show you all this, but I'm going to show you. So here is where we are. So I did 3 pint-sized jars of jelly, and looky here. Can y'all hear it? I had a seal failure. Now, what I want to share about that is not that I hate ball lids. I rarely have seal failures. In full honesty, that lid was one that I had used and vacuum sealed, and I wanted to see could I can with it. I knew I wanted to eat a jar of jelly, even though I wanted one out of the pretty Weck jar. So, do you occasionally have seal failures? Yes, you will. What could you do? You could reprocess. I'm not going to, put a new lid on and reprocess. I'm not doing that for one jar. So, we have some beautiful jelly, beautiful grape jelly, and let me tell you, I literally ate what was like that little bit with a spoon. Yep, I ate it all. So now let's take a look at the Weck jar. So I know I fiddled a lot with getting the clip on, and maybe sometimes it's not a good idea to do a video of something you've never done before. The reason I do that, y'all, is because many of you are going to be trying it for the first time, and then I could be like, okay, this is hard. Okay, this isn't hard. Don't do this. Ooh, I made a mistake here. So I also don't have, as you see, I've got a really bad thumb that's super crooked and one that's pretty normal. So sometimes it's hard for me to do precise hand things. So I hope you'll excuse that and not count that against the Weck jar. So what do I like about it so far? They're so beautiful, and I like that you can see down in. Now, what I will say is you'll notice a little coloration on the top. That's because I didn't get all the foam off my jelly, not the Weck jar's fault. So let's pull off the clips. Super easy to get off. And here's what you do. You pick it up by the glass lid. If it holds, it's sealed, and the number 1 is sealed. To open the jar, you simply pull the tab and it will release the rubber and you can lift the lid off. So 1 down, next one. Again, guys, don't take count of my fiddly fingers. 2 sealed. Okay, that was really easy. 3 sealed. 4 sealed. no failures. So Weck versus Ball. Weck was more successful. Weck is prettier. And the jars, y'all, I never showed you this. Can you see? Yeah, see the Weck strawberry, and then the lids have the same strawberry. So they're super pretty. Now, we don't can just because it's pretty, but my pantry, I have 2 of these that I keep my home canned goods in, and it has the sliding door. It's usually dark in here, so it's not affected the quality of my food. I also have jars in my long-term pantry, but I thought it would be pretty to display the Weck jars. Now let's talk a little bit about cost, because yesterday I was like, they're kind of expensive. So you can buy from Weck.com, and the jars will appear cheaper than Amazon. So 6 of the tulip jars, and they're 12-ounce jars, I finally looked it up, is $22 and I think 86 cents or 68 cents. I'm not dyslexic, but I might be this morning. Anyway, however, the shipping was $14 and something, so it made it a few cents more than just buying the jars from Amazon Prime. So they're like $6.19 a jar, not cheap. I am going to be looking, I got them on sale. Let me just put that out there. I'm going to be looking for more Weck jars. Am I going to get rid of my mason jars? Absolutely not. I have so many jars, and canning is one of my passions. And one of the things that I do to be more self-sufficient here on what I like to think of as my little homestead. I know some people think I'm not a homesteader, but that's okay. At the home place, how about that, guys? Yeah, another thing I really like about the Weck, I did a lot of research on that rubber gasket, because y'all, you know, at one point in time, the lining of the lids of the ball jar were not BPA free. They are now. And then there's a rubber compound. Well, we're not dealing with the lining of anything because the lid is glass. It is not a consumable. In other words, we're not having to pay for it over and over. I wondered what the rubber ring was made of. So I had done the research that it is rubber, it is BPA free. It's not touching your food. I think that's, I mean, look guys, it doesn't touch your food at all. And even if your food rises in the jar, it's not, the way the lid is indented, it's not even gonna touch the rubber. But my question is how much do these cost, and do I have to replace it every time? So Weck, of course, is gonna say, yes, replace the rubber ring every time. I think that's ridiculous. And in my research of other canners, most people will reuse them unless they become brittle, warped, or get a tear. And I can see that they might get a tear, you know, with you pulling on it. I intend to use them over and over. I decided that maybe what I would do is each time I open a jar, I'm gonna make a mark with a Sharpie, and then I will know how many times I've actually used that rubber ring. And if I start to have seal failures, it will, sorry guys, I forgot my watch and my phone's telling me, hey, go get your watch. At any rate, I'll be able to keep track of it. The other thing is I'm gonna have to come up with a system for all these clips so they don't get misplaced. But you can buy replacement rubber rings, you can buy replacement clips, you know, if one gets bent or distorted or, Lord forbid, rusted. But overall, I am super impressed with the Weck. So drop me a comment below. What do y'all think of Weck jars? Do you have Weck jars? Do you have a secret supplier that you can get Weck jars more affordably? I'd love to know that. I also have a very strange question for y'all, and then we'll close the video. I go through, as you see, this is really wet because I washed my canners this morning. I go through so many dish towels, like just because I cook a lot and I can a lot. And I am having a terrible time finding a dish towel that I love. So I'm not a huge fan of terry cloth dish towels. What I like most is like the waffle weave. I also like the linen ones, but they're not super duper absorbent. And so I bought this at the Dollar General and I washed it, and it's about half the size it was. So it shrunk tremendously. I have a couple of these. So what is your favorite dish towel? Even if it's terry cloth, I'm interested because I need to up my dish towel game so that I can have more dish towels. I did buy some from Grove, the red and white stripe. They're okay. They're not super absorbent either. So I need one that's functional, absorbent, etc. All right. I will see you all very soon. I do have a favor to ask you as well. Could you go ahead and smash that like button? And if you know somebody that's thinking about canning on Weck jars, do me a favor and share my video. It really helps out my channel. Y'all, we are so close this morning. 3,790 subscribers. We're about to kick over to the 3,800. And I just want to welcome all of you. I want to thank all of my faithful subscribers. Some of you have been with me from the very beginning when my videos were, oh my word, not good. Alrighty, y'all. I will see you very soon, but until then, be healthy, be well, be blessed. Take care.